The Inspector General for Nebraska Prisons is asking the Department of Corrections to end a practice called double-bunking in restrictive housing. The Watchdog report calls the practice dangerous, as restrictive housing a volatile setting, and prison staff can't always know which inmates are dangerous and which ones are not. This all comes after an inmate was killed by his cellmate in 2017 at the Tecumseh State Correctional Institution, and another inmate was found to have died from strangulation in 2022 at the Nebraska State Pen. In the latter case, investigators are still looking into whether that was a suicide or a homicide. The Inspector General's report finds, despite the risks, the practice of double bunking continues at the Nebraska State Pen to save space, even as their restrictive housing population has decreased.